Emergency episode, Sleepers podcast featuring Austin Massey. Austin, I'd love if you don't mind introducing yourself. You're obviously involved in Texas Tech circles, CBS Sports 247 in your Twitter bio. But if you could let the people know who you are, that would be lovely.
Yeah. So thanks for having me, guys. But yeah, my background, I've been covering college basketball for probably about 3-4 years now, but primarily Texas Tech for the most part. The goal eventually is to kind of expand, nationally, but for now, Texas Tech, that's kind of my wheelhouse. But yeah, I work for 247 Sports, CBS right now. But big fan of what you guys do. So happy to be on the show.
Thanks. Appreciate that. Big day yesterday for Texas Tech. I do want to touch on the commitment of Fardaws just a little bit, because that was the high point of the day. How big of a get was that for Texas Tech?
Yeah, I mean, that was huge, right? Because you're losing Bryson Williams, Marcus Santos Silva. You didn't know if you were going to get Kevin Obanor back, but you did last week. So that was a huge get. I mean, arguably, I would say Fardaws and Obanor will be one of the best front courts in the Big 12, maybe the country. They offer a lot of versatility. They both can kind of stretch the floor. Obanor, obviously, a little bit more. I think Fardaws had like 46 attempts last year from beyond the arc, but he still has a pretty decent touch, shooting wise. So I thought it was a huge get. I'm really excited for it. I think that it's going to be big for the team. I mean, he's experienced. He's also a pretty legit rebounder. I mean, I think he averaged like almost 14 rebounds a game last season. I think he was second in the nation. So it was a big get, especially, they got Harmon the day before that, who I think is going to be a good lead guard for them. They're going to try and put him into that lead guard spot, but they still are looking to get like another two and probably like a wing. So that's kind of the plan moving forward for them, I think. But yeah, it's starting to come together. It got a little scary with Terrence Shannon and Kevin McCullough and all that. So it's starting to kind of get back on track though.
Yeah, Texas Tech, clearly one of the more active programs in the portal already. And I think from an objective standpoint, outside looking in, you could say one of the more successful teams in navigating the portal in the past 2 seasons. But let's go from the high point to the low point. This is what the people want to hear. So Terrence Shannon formally commits to Illinois publicly yesterday. Obviously, a big part of our listener base is Michigan/Michigan State fans. So there was a lot of interest from our followers on exactly what was going to happen there. There were rumors that Terrence Shannon had committed to Michigan last week. Mac Irvin Fire's head coach came out publicly and said he had committed to Michigan last week. All of the quote unquote insiders were, not really giving any public facts on this. They were being really cagey about it. As little as yesterday morning, from my side, everything I had heard, Michigan still felt pretty good about it. Texas Tech was saying it was 50-50 Michigan, Texas Tech. And then Illinois comes out of nowhere and says he's committing today to Illinois. And at the time, I kind of rolled my eyes at that knowledge, because Illinois seems to think they're getting every single player in the portal. Ultimately, it turns into a fact. Terrence Shannon is headed to Illinois. And then just to set the table here, and then we'll throw it over to you, Hunter Dickinson attacks Mark Adams publicly on Twitter. Now, Hunter Dickinson is obviously a fantastic player. Carter and I have had our own narratives of Hunter Dickinson over the years from what we personally have seen at Big Ten Media Day. He does not shy away from conflict. He does not shy away from controversy. He's clickbait Hunter.
He loves attention. Throw that in there. He loves attention.
That's part of the Hunter Dickinson experience. So while reading these tweets is shocking, because I have it up. I'm just going to read it. Mark Adams is a coward. You should be ashamed of yourself for using your power over a kid to prevent him from going where he wanted to, just because you wanted him to stay at your school. There's 2 more paragraphs. I'm not going to read word for word. You can find the tweet if you really want to. But the reason you're here to explain this, Austin, is you very quickly responded to Hunter on Twitter and essentially said, this is not at all what happened. This is really irresponsible to say. So I'd love for you to fill the people in on, from your side, what did happen.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think initially it was pretty shocking, right? I wasn't really expecting that. I guess to provide some background, I had heard, pretty much pretty early on that Terrence Shannon wanted to be at Michigan. That's what I heard. I think that was the consensus. Just like everyone, I heard there was issues with credits transferring. So, and you know, him being ineligible. So fast forward, I did some calling around yesterday just to kind of figure out what's going on, you know, at least on the Texas Tech side. You know, and from their perspective, I think kind of what happened was, so I was told Terrence was going to be set back a full academic year if he went to Michigan. So he was going to need to make those classes up over the summer, which is, you know, I guess that's relatively common. So the issue is, Terrence asked Mark Adams, this is what I was told. He asked Mark Adams if he could stay on scholarship over the summer, you know, take those classes and then transfer to Michigan. So what I was told, you know, Mark Adams, he doesn't have any power to like block him from not going anywhere or anything like that, because he's a first-time transfer. But I do believe he told them, like, you know, we're not going to keep you on scholarship over the summer if you're planning on transferring, regardless of where it's going to go or where you're going to go. And I think that has to do with Texas Tech right now. You know, they have 1 or 2 scholarships open. So it's like they still have at least 2 more guys they want to get. And my understanding is these guys are going to come in, you know, starting at the beginning of the summer, start summer workouts and all that. So I believe their scholarship would start, you know, that summer session. So, you know, I think it just, the thing is there's no bad blood between Terrence Shannon and Mark Adams. I know that for a fact, because he was just at, I mean, he's still in Lubbock today. And he's at the practice facility hanging out. And my perspective is, you know, Terrence Shannon and Mark Adams have probably had the closest relationship on the entire Texas Tech team for years. I mean, I've heard that Terrence hangs out at his house all the time. Like, they're just really good. They're close, you know? And that's why Terrence came back in the first place. I mean, he could have easily entered the portal last year after Beard left. He stayed. So I think that the misconception is that Mark Adams specifically, you know, blocked him from going to Michigan, you know, per se, opposed to just kind of, hey, like, I guess from his side or from Texas Tech side, it was more of a business matter, right? Like, hey, like if you're going to be transferring out, we can't keep you on scholarship because we have to get guys in here that are going to be playing on next year's roster, right? So I do see both sides of the story, but I think that's what they feel, right? Like, I think that, but I was just, you know, my point when I put out that tweet was, you know, it's not true. Mark Adams and Terrence have a great relationship, even to this day. Terrence and his family haven't hinted to me or anyone else that there's been any kind of issues, you know, that's been another thing. And just him being on campus, staying, you know, at the practice facility, it tells a lot, right? Like, I don't really think you would be hanging around Mark Adams if Mark Adams was this bad guy, right? So that's kind of my perspective. But if you have any specific questions, I did ask around a lot about this situation yesterday.
Yeah, so I have one card. I'm going to take it from you first, real quick. So I guess to play devil's advocate here, if the relationship between Mark Adams and Terrence Shannon is such a positive one,
mm-hmm.
and Terrence looks Mark Adams in the eye and says, I want to go to Michigan,
mm-hmm.
would Mark Adams not pull some strings to help him do that if the relationship was really that good? Like, in your mind, it's just a business decision, case
mm-hmm.
closed, like that's fine? Or was there any tension there if Terrence really did want to go to Michigan and we all believe that's true?
Yeah. Not that I heard of. I heard it was literally as simple as like, hey, will you pay for my summer classes? And then Adams is just kind of like, no, we just can't do that. And they're just like, okay, you know, I didn't hear there was any kind of explosive like arguments or anything like that. But I do, you know, that's why I do see the other point. And I guess like the rebuttal to that I've heard. And again, I'm trying to have like a neutral standpoint. Obviously, I covered Texas Tech, so I do know Mark Adams is a really good guy. And that he's just very well respected, you know, amongst everyone, really. He's never had any kind of issues like this, but the whole, I guess, rebuttal is like, you know, we all know Terrence Shannon was, and I don't know the rules behind this, but I do believe he did have the option to pay for his classes individually, right? I think that's a thing. I'm not sure. I did ask around about that, and the consensus was he could have paid for classes out of pocket. And based on what I've heard, I mean, Terrence was probably Texas Tech's highest compensated, you know, NIL player last season. So, I mean, I think the argument is like, hey, like, why do we need to keep you on scholarship if you know, you made X amount last year and we know you can afford it? If you really want to go, maybe Michigan, obviously, you know, I don't think it'd be legal for them to actually pay for his classes, right? But there's probably workarounds for that. So I think it was just kind of like a chess battle, right? Like, hey, you pay for my classes. Michigan obviously wanted that too, because they don't have to do anything else. So, and then I think, you know, on the other side, Mark Adams is like, hey, we need these scholarships. So that's kind of my perspective. Yeah.
All right. So my question is, so obviously everyone saw this tweet, everyone responded to it. It's getting circulated in all college basketball media world and just college basketball fans in general. Is there any fear on the Texas Tech side or anything like that this tweet could cause an issue? You know what I'm saying? Because this starts conversations, recruits see that, is there any kind of feeling on the Texas Tech side that this could have actual serious negative repercussions?
I don't think so. I mean, I the one thing that, as someone who covers recruiting, the one thing that I get all the time from whether it's a high school player or, transfer like Fardals, it's their relationship with Mark Adams is different than with other coaches. It's like, he's kind of just a straight shooter. He's not going to always just tell you what you want to hear. He's not going to tell you, hey, like, I'm going to bring you in and give you 35 minutes a game to every guy. You know what I mean? He tells people straight how he feels about them and what their role is going to be. So I don't, the perception, between people that actually know Mark Adams is that he's not that type of person. I don't know. I haven't, heard from any recruits that, hey, like, well, this kind of concerns me, or, man, I'm having second thoughts. I haven't heard anything like that at this point. But it's definitely, I mean, it's interesting, right? Like I think kind of Texas Tech, I mean, I reached out to Terrence's mom to try and get a response. I didn't get anything back, but I wanted to hear their side of the story. You know what I mean? Like, I really do. Cause I mean, I think a lot of people are questioning, who leaked this? Like, was it the Michigan side? Was it Terrence's circle? It definitely wasn't Texas Tech, you know what I mean? But that's a genuine question that I'm curious about. But I don't see it having an impact. I mean, I think Tech's really, they've really, Mark Adams has exceeded his expectations recruiting. I believe they're, his first high school class, he put together a top 25 class nationally, which is, for Lubbock, that's really good historically, but also for a first-year head coach, it's pretty good. And then, right now they have the #1 transfer class. So, I mean, I don't see it having an impact, but you never know, right? Maybe it has an impact on kids in that region, kind of near that Michigan region. But I mean, it's definitely, it's fun. Like it was a crazy story. Like I got like 10 calls as soon as that happened, and people were like, what is going on? Like, I don't know. I was like, I didn't know anything about this. I heard a couple of days ago he was committed to Illinois, or I heard yesterday, yesterday he committed. So I heard the day before that. I guess that was Thursday. So that happened quick though. I was like, I think Greg had mentioned, we were kind of going back and forth on Twitter. I was like, I have no clue where he's going to go. I was like, I think he's going to stay at Tech probably, because he's still at the practice facility hanging out with the guys. Like, you know what I mean? Wearing Texas Tech clothes. So maybe that was him trying to, create just positive energy with Mark Adams and try to get those credits going. I don't know, but I do have my questions too. Like, I want to know, why not just pay for the classes yourself?
Yeah, the one person who needs to speak up here is Terrence Shannon. And that's, I guess, my final question we'll leave you with here is, for Hunter Dickinson to be the whistleblower here, which again, Hunter doesn't need a lot of prompting to stir controversy. I'm telling you that.
Yeah.
And whether you like that or not, that's just part of the experience of Hunter Dickinson. But for him to go public like he did, I got to know what is Terrence Shannon thinking and feeling behind the scenes about this? Because he's not speaking up. Did Terrence want Hunter Dickinson to tweet that out? Like, were there some behind closed doors? Like, I'm sure those guys still talk. They hung out last week. Like, maybe Terrence was sort of prompting that. But the other thing with the Hunter tweet is, like, if this comes a week ago while the recruitment's still open, that probably puts some public pressure on both Texas Tech and maybe people on the Michigan side to figure this shit out. So the timing of it's weird to me. It almost feels to me like just speculating that Terrence Shannon has nothing to do with the tweet from Hunter. But until he really tells us, like, we're not going to know. I guess from what you know about Terrence Shannon, and again, final question because Carter needs to go here, but like from what you know about Terrence, like what would your read be on where he stands with all of this at this point?
Yeah. I mean, Terrence he's a quiet guy, actually, surprisingly enough. You know, he doesn't play like a quiet player when he's on the court. He's an alpha, you know, but off the court, he's pretty quiet. He kind of stays low. He actually, I mean, the reason why no one knew where he's going to go is because he doesn't share much with the media. You know what I mean? Like, he really doesn't. I mean, I've maybe talked to the guy like once, you know what I mean? And he's been at Texas Tech for 3 years. So he doesn't share anything with the media. He keeps stuff very close in his circle. But my understanding is, you know, in his circle, he does have a lot of people pulling him different ways. And that's something I've always heard. I heard right from the start, you know, Terrence didn't really want to go into the portal, but, you know, some other people around him really wanted him to. And he was kind of going back and forth. I mean, I had even heard a week ago that he had told Mark Adams straight up that he wanted to come back. So I think that it's just been a very fluid, you know, odd situation. But Terrence is a great kid. I really don't think he would leak anything to hurt Texas Tech. I mean, if you go to his Twitter, everything he tweets about is Texas Tech related. It's like he's always positive about them. And again, I don't know if that's just him trying to, you know, look good in Mark Adams' eyes or whatever it may be. I mean, Mark Adams isn't on Twitter, you know what I mean? But I don't think he did that maliciously. If he did do that, if my best guess was maybe it was his AAU coach, or maybe it was someone that maybe their ego was a little in check after he committed to Illinois. Who knows who did it? But somehow, you know, a couple of Michigan players found out. It probably spread within their circle pretty quick. Because like you said, I'm sure they grew close. You know, I saw the Instagram stories and all that. They were at dinner together. They're hanging out. They looked pretty happy. I'm sure that's where Terrence wanted to be. But, you know, from my perspective, you know, I've been covering Mark Adams for a while now, and he's just, in my opinion, he's just really not that kind of guy that would go out of his way to prevent someone from going anywhere. So it's a bummer that, you know, this even happened, right? Like, he shouldn't have even had to take more classes in the first place. It just stinks that it happened, but, you know, maybe it's for the best for both teams. I don't know.
Good old Michigan admissions department, right, Cart?
Yeah, good old Michigan. And one last thing I want to say to Illinois fans, high on your horse, like you just absolutely won a recruiting battle. Humble yourselves a little bit. That's all I'm going to say. Just a smidge.
I was telling Cart before you jumped on, Austin, this season, Michigan's become the bad boys of college basketball, man. Everybody hates us. Texas Tech hates us now. Illinois hates us. So we'll see where it goes. Austin, thanks for jumping on short notice with us. We appreciate you. You can follow Austin on Twitter. What's your Twitter handle?
Yeah, it's just Austin Massey 247.
Awesome. Appreciate you, man.
Hey, thanks a lot, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, Austin. Have a good one.